Whether you keep them in your home or love to see them in theirs, these are the creatures that bring us all together.
Reptiles. We're going to be delving into the experiences of reptile lovers from around the block and around the world. This is the Reptile Talk Podcast.
Boom! What is going on, everybody? This is Jeremy Turton from Brassman Reptiles.
And I'm Robin. I'm creeping it real.
He's voguing it real right now.
Strike a pose.
And tonight we're stroming live here on all platforms. I wasn't gonna let it go. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. I deserve that one.
We've only been doing this for 140 something times.
You know, you'd think that I would understand how to say streaming, but again, words escape me.
It's okay. It's fine. How are you doing, Rob?
I am just barely alive. It's just this last couple weeks has been a lot, so I am doing okay. But I'm hoping that I can get outside this weekend.
Yes, absolutely.
Because it's been cold as hell, and we got snow last weekend, so like, yeah, I'm not about it. Yeah. What about you? How you doing?
I am doing well. Just coming back off of a large trip that kept me away for a while. I'm not talking about it just yet, so I'll be making some posts about it very soon. But I had a great time. So I came back and came down with some kind of cold, bug, whatever, as one does at the drop of a hat. So I've been sluggishly getting through my days. So taking care of animals while not paying 100% attention to things, but have not been bitten yet. So I'm doing all right. That. I worked through all 50 Amazons today and did not get bitten. So
no one makes me bleed my own blood.
Yeah, man. I think I'm doing all right. So, yeah. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm rounding out. We're going to be rounding out after the end of the first week of February, I'll be rounding out the colubrid brumation period because I started them. I put them down kind of early, so I'm going to bring them up a little early. So I'm excited to get those in the cycle for breeding this year. Lots of fun colubrid projects incoming. Came back to find a litter of leopard Amazons on the ground, which I was super stoked about.
Hell yeah.
So I was not expecting that. I wasn't expecting her to go until the end of the month. So that was a pleasant surprise to come back to. And also a carpet python ovulation, which is cool. So I have some albino and caramel albino carpet pythons this year, which will be sweet. So all in all, can't complain. Can't complain.
Tight, man.
Yeah,
That's
buddy.
Tight.
Yeah, buddy.
And before we get too deep into this, tonight's episode is brought to you by Black Box Cages. If you're looking for a new rack or enclosure, make sure you check out blackboxcages.com. Quickest turnaround time in the game. Top quality enclosures. Just check them out. They're great. You won't regret it. And if you are going through checkout, you can use the code Reptile Talk, I think, at checkout. Yep. Get a little bit off the top. So.
Oh, yeah. Save you some money. Everybody needs to save money right now.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, it's a thing, guys. It's a thing. Oh man, but heck yeah, I'm super stoked for tonight. We're talking about one thing that I know a fair bit about. One thing I know absolutely nothing about, but Rob knows about. So I'm super excited. Excuse me.
Are you stroming over there?
I'm stroming. You want to go ahead because I'm dying.
Don't mind Jeremy. He's just having a little bit of trouble right now, but we're gonna have a really great guest on tonight. You good? Okay. We're gonna have Samantha Mancino tattoos on tonight. I'm super hyped. We're gonna be talking about tattoos and reptiles.
Bam! There we go.
Hey,
sorry, Stromer's moment over here. Jesus. Oh man.
So how are you doing this evening?
I'm good. I'm preparing to go to Peru in a few days, and I have a bunch of tattoos lined up right before. So
That's
Heck
always
yeah.
fun. You're like down to crunch time. You're like, I gotta cram everything in, doing drawings and all that stuff. Or do you draw like really far ahead, or do you like try and get closer to the day?
closer to the day, I would. Yeah.
Every
Or
tattoo I know, that's kind of how it runs for the most part.
yes. Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very time consuming job. And so, for the people who might not know of you or have heard of you, what kind of brought you to reptiles and like exotic animals? And then you also incorporate that you do really incredible tattoos that feature reptiles. And so, I've been following you for a while online, and I really love the tattoos that you do. And so, what kind of brought you to where you're at in your journey?
Well, I grew up in St. Petersburg, Florida, so we have a lot
Mhm.
of wildlife and reptiles. So I was I was outside a lot as a kid, and then later I got into keeping them, and in my early 20s I got into keeping snakes specifically. And
Mhm.
I started with a California king snake, and I did my first snake tattoo like 16 years ago. I mean, I've been tattooing
Really?
16 years. So, yeah, sort of one followed the other.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you remember what kind of snake the first snake you tattooed was, or was it like just like a generic like?
It was kind of like a generic colubrid. It was
Yeah,
two-headed.
hell yeah.
But yeah. Yeah.
The generic two-headed colubrid. I'm here for
Yes.
it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Actually, one of the hardest snake tattoos, the first one where I was like, oh shit, this is really difficult, was a rattlesnake. Was it like a Western
Mm,
diamondback I did
Mm.
like 13 or 14 years ago.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite type of snake that you like tattooing, or is it just like whatever the client kind of wants?
Um, since so many people have been requesting rattlesnakes, I really enjoyed doing those, and rat snakes and the
Hell yeah,
indigos. A couple people have gotten indigos. So
that's cool.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, and cobras. Cobra scales are so gorgeous and so perfect
Hmm.
for tattooing.
Yeah, I feel like the cobra scales might be a little bit easier to do than some of the rattlesnakes with how like keeled and textured they are.
Exactly. And the markings too. It's
Yeah,
really
my
tricky.
brain could not comprehend how the pattern would go over the texturing of the scales. When I try to think about how I would draw that, I can't.
Yeah, it's hard. You have to like figure out a way to translate it into a tattoo that's going to age well. So you can't,
Mhm.
yeah, I don't think I can't do it photorealistically. I don't,
Mhm.
I wouldn't like how that looks. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Honestly, I think that your tattoos do look very, in my opinion, they do look very realistic. Like, I feel like I look at a lot of snake tattoos and I'm like, I don't even know what kind of snake that is. And with your tattoos, I can literally look at them pretty much every single time. And I'm like, oh, I know exactly what that is, when I look at it. And it's
Oh,
like, I like recognizing that.
that's so awesome. Yeah, it's sort of has started attracting more and more people who really want specific species, and I've gotten really lucky that I've been getting a lot of herpetologist and biologist clients in the past 5, 6 years. So I've gotten to learn a lot too through that.
That's
That's
super cool.
awesome. That's
Yeah,
so cool.
yeah.
What's
But do you
what's
have
been
any?
like
Oh,
one
no.
of the most like far out species that like somebody brought to you like I want this and you've been like what the hell?
Um, well, I did. I mean, it's not super far out, but I did a sidewinder recently, and I think
That's
just
cool.
getting the chance to look at those closely, you're like, what happened?
Yeah.
What happened?
They're so cool.
Hell yeah.
um,
Yeah.
yeah.
But would you say there's any species that you're like, I would really like to tattoo one of these on somebody?
Um, I kind of, I really want to do like the Arizona black rattlesnake.
Yeah, Molosis.
Reptiles
Oh no, you're talking about the Cerberus.
Cerberus.
Yeah,
done
Cerberus, hell yeah.
Molossus. Yeah, I love Molossus. The ornate ones, they're gorgeous.
Yeah. Mhm.
And there's definitely, I've done a lot of like spitting cobras, siamensis. Is that?
Yeah.
I would love to do more of those just because the contrast and the scales are really beautiful.
Hell yeah.
I don't know. I saved so many. Like I have thousands. I just counted them the other day. I have almost like 4,000 images of snakes that I've saved to like for
Hell yeah.
referencing. And
Hell
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I look back through my like screenshot folder of like I'm like, oh man, I need to remember where this picture was, and like the I don't know, Jeremy, if you saw that a couple weeks ago, I think I reposted it. There was a albino Russell's viper, and
Oh yes.
then like the leucistic or ivory looking scrubs in Southeast Asia, and like when I'm going through my screenshots folder, I'm just like, oh my god, what is there's a lot in there. There's so much. You don't realize until you start going back through it.
Yeah. I just started a sleeve. It's most of a sleeve where he let me pick the viper, and I think it's called a Malcolm's pit viper. It has the high contrast. Is that right? Malcolm's viper.
Yeah. Malcolm, yeah.
Yeah.
Those are really tight.
Yeah. The Sri Lankan pit vipers are gorgeous too. I love tattooing those. Super high contrast. Yeah. I'm trying to think.
Well, like, what kind of snakes are you like into keeping, or do you still have like a favorite?
No, I just got the yellow-tailed Kribo, which I've been wanting one for a while. When I lived in California, I wanted an Eastern Indigo, but I moved to Florida, which you can't keep them here,
Yeah, you
understandably.
can't have them there.
Yeah. For a while I was obsessed with chondros, but I'm fine with one now. She's enough.
Yeah. That is very understandable.
Yeah.
She's really cool. I have an IMG boa. I think it's the Black Devil morph. I'm not sure. I got her on Craigslist, or I got him on Craigslist. And yeah, I travel a lot, so I only have like 4 snakes right now, but I would love to keep more.
Yeah. So you said that you're going to Peru for your next spotlight?
I'm not guesting there.
Okay.
A herpetologist reached out to me she was asking for designs for fundraising. They're doing a study on snake evolution in the Amazon in response to human activity. So she gave me a list of species, and I did one design. I want to do another one of a Bushmaster. And then I asked if I could come there and see what they're doing.
Hell yeah.
That's awesome.
That's so cool.
We're gonna go herping. Yeah.
Yes.
Hell yeah.
That's so freaking cool.
So
that's gonna be an awesome experience.
Yeah, it's I fly into Iquitos and then take a boat for 4+ hours to their research facility. So
oof.
Get all the Dramamine. Get as much as you can get.
Okay.
That sounds cool, really exciting. So you're gonna be like hanging out, doing some herping. There's so many cool species down there. I'm guessing like Bushmaster's top of the list, right?
Of course, yes.
Yeah.
I really want to see one. Yeah. The design I've given them so far, I think it's called a 2-lined forest viper. It's 2-line something. Sorry. It was yeah.
That's okay. We can still hear you.
Yeah.
so sorry.
You're good. I've done many a live stream as a black rectangle.
There's another one that she told me about, the ornate egg-eating snake. Have you seen that?
Oh,
Those are
yeah.
cool.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. There's anacondas, so hopefully
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
you get to see one of them. I mean, and like, the tree boas, like see one of those wild would be
Yes.
pretty
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Jeremy, that's where Christian just was, right?
Yeah.
Caveman?
Yep. Yeah. I think he
Bro.
was, just in Peru. Yeah.
One of our guests we just recently had on, he went down to Peru and they went looking for anacondas and they found a massive anaconda down there. I'll have to send you his profile so you can like see some of the stuff that he's posted about it, because
It
holy
was
crap,
insane. Yeah.
it's really cool, and hopefully you can get some of that herping magic to flow down your way so you can see some cool
Right.
stuff while you're down there. And also, he'll have to tell you what kind of wasps those were, because there's some type of wasp that if you
Oh,
go near their
yes.
nest at nighttime, they will annihilate you, but during the daytime you can just go right by them and they're no big deal. And he got stung to hell.
He did. I don't mean to laugh, but that was really funny.
It was rough, man.
Yeah. Sheesh.
I can feel that
But
pain.
so how long are you gonna end up being out there?
I think I'll be there like 5 days at the camp, at the research facility.
Oh, nice.
That's awesome.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Have you been to that part of the world before?
No. And I usually don't take non-tattoo related trips, so.
Yeah. That's good for your mental health, though.
Yeah.
Boundaries. Yeah.
Right.
Right? Man, I'm very envious. That sounds like it's going to be a really fun trip, and you have a lot of opportunity to see some really cool animals.
Yeah. I think it's important, especially, I mean, I know in Florida's being developed so quickly. I try to go herping here as much as I can, and it just seems like there's less and less places to go. So I want to see as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Totally
really
hear
rough.
that.
Like with how rapidly a lot of places are expanding. It's really, really sad, because like even I went back to one of the places that I used to go herping when I was a kid near my childhood home in Massachusetts. And I lived south of Boston, kind of in the suburbs, but the area where I lived had a lot of like protected woods and everything. And one of the areas that I used to go to, and I used to post YouTube videos from like this area all the time, of like milk snakes and ringneck snakes and tons of garter snakes and all this stuff. And I went back there a couple of years ago before I moved to North Carolina, and it was just flattened. The whole place, they turned it into an apartment complex, and like everything was gone from that whole area, and is very heartbreaking, because like I know that there was a very rich snake population that was there, but they never, the people who are developing there would never know that. I'm willing to bet they don't do an environmental impact survey to determine whether or not it's going to affect the native snakes of an area,
Yeah.
which is a bummer. But
Yeah.
and Florida,
and even if they do, to get them to care, is like the other element of it too.
Yeah. So you've got that on the horizon, and then what's your next trips after that?
I work in New York, and then I go to Salt Lake City, and then after that I'm going to Cape Town. I'm working the South African Tattoo Convention.
Oh, cool.
That's exciting.
Yeah. And I took a venomous handling certification course recently with the Rattlesnake Conservancy.
Hell yeah.
And they're fucking awesome. But there's I think it's called the African Snakebite Institute.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think I could like coordinate that with my trip if they had a course in the same time frame. But
That would be awesome.
Would be really cool. Yeah.
Because like the Rattlesnake Conservancy lets you work with like basically rattlesnakes, right? When you're doing the intro course.
Yeah, and copperheads and cottonmouths. I think.
Gotcha.
Okay, cool.
I'm trying to think of like what the African Snakebite Institute. They're like, actually, we go with a green mamba right off the rip. Like, just
right.
We go for boom slangs. If you can't work a if you can't dodge a wrench, you can't dodge a ball, right? Like,
Oof. Oof.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I'm trying to think. What would they use? They would probably use what a gaboon or something like that.
Cobra? Cape cobra?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although cobras can be really tricky. I find that like a lot of the elapids, trying to get them to ride a hook can be really tricky sometimes because they'll use their tail like an anchor around if they're close to your hand, and then if they start going up the hook, instead of just like riding up the hook, they circle around it a whole bunch of times, so it's tough to get them off sometimes. It's just like it's a pain in the butt.
So what do you
But yeah, you drop them. That's what you do. Like if it gets too close to your hand, you just cut your losses at the moment, and having to pick everything up off the floor is better than having to figure out a medical bill.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
I'm trying to think if it was them or I think it was the African Snakebite Institute had a booth at the museum in Raleigh, North Carolina hosts a reptile day, like a reptile and amphibian day once a year. And I'm pretty sure it was the African Snakebite Institute that had a table there, and they had like patches with like the rhino viper on it and everything. They're really cool. And I chatted with them for about, I don't know, 30 or 40 minutes, but it was like kind of one of their US representatives that was here that works with some of the local hospitals and
Oh, that's cool.
deals with all that sort of stuff. Yeah. I was
That's
like, what do I got to
cool.
do to walk away with one of these patches right now? Because they got a rhino viper on them, huh? What do I got to do? I was like, I got to donate. Let me donate. I need this patch for right now.
No, that's when it's just like, boom slang right now. There you go. Go for broke.
Right? You can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
Oh man. Exotic venomous handling 101. Just go for it.
Yeah. Honestly, that's what the Hamburg show is like. They're just like, you've never had a venomous snake before? Here's a king cobra. Like, you got $500? Cool. It's horrible.
Oof.
Have you gone to any of the because I don't know, do they still have shows that host venomous stuff in Florida? I'm trying to think. I can't remember. When I was like 17, I went to the Fire Show in Orlando, and they had a section that was section of that show that was like labeled off for venomous, and you had to be like 18 or older to go in there.
No, I've never seen that.
Yeah. That was a long time ago.
Dang.
But yeah, if you ever get a chance, if you ever find yourself in Hamburg, Pennsylvania, go check out the Hamburg, Pennsylvania Reptile Expo. It is the wildest thing that you're probably ever going to see, because there's just like, there's not a ton of vendors that have venomous stuff, but there's just lots of rattlesnakes on tables. Yeah, you're like, okay, how many of you have got all 10 fingers?
I've been seeing too many people walk around with all 10 digits. I have to fix this.
That's what I think. Like the first time I went, I was like, Western Diamondback rattlesnakes for $40? What is happening right now? This is dangerous.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I don't know. That may have changed since then, but man, I've seen
God, I hope
that.
so.
That scares me. When I see venomous snakes for under $100, I'm like, oh, that's like someone's like, well, I could go out to dinner tonight, or I could get this venomous snake, and I'm like, maybe you should go out to dinner. I don't know.
Yeah, go for the steak, bro.
Yeah.
Tempting.
Yeah, right.
Very.
Oh man,
Yeah.
that's funny. Yeah, it's interesting. Like the venomous wise, as far as shows go, like there's just very few and far between in the country that are really
Yeah.
doing anything venomous wise. Which I mean, I understand. Obviously, a lot of states have regulations. Certainly, none like
Mhm.
quite like Florida, but they all have those regulations, and I feel like a lot of those guys are just like, "Yeah, we're just not going to deal with it."
Yeah. Basically. I'm trying to think of like what we got, like the Hamburg show. There's a few shows in Texas, and then the Mid Atlantic show in North Carolina, the Columbia show in South Carolina,
Hmm.
and I don't know any of the other ones that do.
Yeah, I'm trying to think as well. I don't think there are much more than that.
Hmm.
Lame.
Yeah.
Oh man, I dig it though. I dig it. I also feel like not everybody needs access to the venomous stuff, especially when
Yeah.
people are throwing it on tables for under $100. Like,
Yeah.
it's okay.
And not every snake is that cheap, but man, there's a lot of them that are.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So as far as like the tattooing and reptiles go, uh is it something that you like advertise, or did it just kind of naturally work its way into the stuff that you're doing?
No, I never. I mean, just through putting it in my portfolio, it sort of evolved naturally. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, and the more specific I started getting with snakes and snake species, the more it started attracting people who have like an interest or study them or are passionate about them. And it also attracts
Yeah.
a lot of people that just like the image, but I I really love how it's like fed into being able to learn more about them and meet people who study them and have devoted their lives to take, I don't know, keeping them and learning about them. It's really awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
It's definitely cool that you've gotten biologists and herpetologists that are paying attention and coming to you for that kind of stuff too. Like that's, I mean, because you're spending in many cases hours with some of these people,
Yeah.
so you just get to have those conversations that most of us would be like, if I could only touch the hem of his garment, like.
Yeah. I think one of the first herpetologists that reached out to me, she's incredible. Her name is Sam Jones. She used to do Burmese python work
Mhm.
in research in Thailand and then in Florida in the Everglades. And her husband, Max Jones, did a king cobra research project, and I tattooed
Mm,
both of them and got to learn a lot about the snakes they worked
that's
with.
awesome.
Yeah,
Hell
and
yeah.
eventually I ended up volunteering with her and another herpetologist named Cassidy. So we did a couple like saltwater croc surveys and alligator surveys and
Oh,
snake
hell yeah.
surveys. Yep.
That's super
That's
cool.
so cool.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
I'm envious.
definitely love when you can have two passions. My bad, Rob.
No, you're
When
good.
you can have two passions kind of collide like that in such an impactful way too. Like it's not like you just got like random Joe Schmo who's like, yeah, can you do this ball python on my forearm? Like some legit people. That's super cool.
Yeah. My friend that just got the sidewinder tattoo, we met before I tattooed her to go herping. So I
Oh,
could
that's
see
awesome.
the
Yeah, let's fucking
black-tailed
go.
rattlesnake in Arizona.
Yes.
So we just met in a park after.
That's hype. That's awesome.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so freaking cool.
I
I
dig it.
still have not seen a Melosis, man. I'm very envious. That's my favorite rattlesnake, and I have yet to see one. I've been trying to make an Arizona trip happen for the last couple of years, and I just have not been able to do it. And I have a deep need to see one of those in the wild. And then I want to see some Cerberus too, but like Melosis are the top of the list for me.
What about a speck? I really wanted to see a speck as well.
So I have seen a speckled. I went out with a bunch of people kind of from like the NPR crew. We had, Justin Julender there, and Matt Mitchell, and a bunch of people, and they were like, "Oh yeah, there's like this one area where we're gonna like go off the road a little bit, and then we're gonna like climb this big rock face, and just watch where you put your hands because there's speckled rattlesnakes like all over the place here, and they're like kind of like a kind of pinkish color." And so we're like walking around, and I'm like, "Oh, look, a tarantula. Oh, look, a tarantula. Look at all this stuff." And then, I hear somebody shout, "A rattlesnake." And so we go over there, and now we got 6 headlamps, and it's just curled up. It's like was not moving. It was just kind of like perched up, and everybody's, it did not care that we were there at all. And, we spent a good amount of time there, checking them out. Oh man, my phone's going crazy right now. Basically, we spent a good amount of time like hanging out at it. I took a couple pictures of it, but I was like, I whenever I'm with a big group of people and we find something cool, I always want other people to like get to experience it. So like I always try to just like get out of the way. I'm like, "Oh man, that's freaking cool." And then I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna go over here for like a minute." And like I took a couple pictures and hung out with for a little bit, and then I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna see if I can find another one." So I start like walking around, and it's pitch black out, so I'm just got my flashlight walking around, and there was like a good amount of tarantulas all over this area, and like the camel spiders, the sulfuge, those guys. There was a few of those out there, and but we saw one speckled rattlesnake on that trip, and then a lot of the Great Basin rattlesnakes, the lutosis, which are like really cool. And I did not know very much about them until I went on that trip, but I saw a lot of them while I was out there. It was like southern Utah, northern Arizona, and the adults are really cool. They're like, Jeremy, have you seen those? They look like cookies and cream. Like the saddles are like dark, and then they have like a light white base to them. They're like
That's
so
cool.
interesting looking. Yeah,
that's super cool.
Yeah.
I recently stopped by a different client invited me to check out the venom lab he works at. So I got to see
Cool.
a bunch of rattlesnake species I'd never seen in person before.
Heck yeah.
A Cerberus and prairie rattlesnakes, which
Mm.
like banded rock rattlesnakes, tiger rattlesnakes. I also
Tigers
saw
are cool.
for the first time.
Oh,
Pretty awesome. I've
That's
never seen
awesome.
one in real life.
See, I've taken that for granted so bad because like when I was younger, I would go to the Hamburg, Pennsylvania Expo. Like I try to go once a year, and they'd literally just be like cups and cups and cups and cups and cups of Gaboon Vipers for $150. And so that was like my first experience with them. And then I knew some people who privately kept them, so I was able to go to some people's houses and see them. And then going to Nerd, I would see some there. And then working at Nerd and getting to work with the ones that they had. And, I feel like I take them a little bit for granted because they are a very interesting looking snake. But I'm always like, Gaboons are cool, but have you seen rhino vipers? And like, I don't know. I love rhino vipers so much. So I'm like, why do Gaboons get all the credit? Rhino vipers are just as cool, I swear.
Yeah, those are really beautiful. Yeah, I got the impression that Gaboons are really popular as pets. And actually, they get bit. My client was saying that people get bit often in the States by their pet Gaboon vipers.
Yeah, because they think it's chill. Because most of the time they go at this pace until it's not time to go at this pace anymore, and then they are lightning.
Yep.
So people think that they're chill when in reality it's just like, I'm just putting up with you right now. I'm putting up with you right now. I'm putting up with you right now. And then all of a sudden one day they do something wrong and the thing's like, it's like, I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't even know that it's happened until you just see like, oh, I'm bleeding now. And that's probably a bad thing. Like,
I wish I had a Gaboon Fang on me to show you, but like the mechanical damage from the size of their fangs alone is brutal. Like their fangs are not to be messed with. It's like a little knife, basically, that just and it
Pretty
injects
much.
venom. It's horrible. It's brutal. I'll say like when
Yeah.
I posted a while back, well, when I was at Nerd, I had found a Gaboon Fang in like one of their enclosures and then a rattlesnake fang, and I put them side by side, and I was like, this is just not good. It's really not good. If you were to get bit by like getting bit by a rattlesnake would suck, and like the venom is really bad and blah 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 blah. But like when I look at the size of a fang, I'm like, even if it didn't have venom, getting bit by a Gaboon Viper would be
Would suck.
horrendous. It would be so bad.
Suck. People don't like getting bit by Amazon tree boas and emerald tree boas, and those teeth are still not the size of a Gaboon fang. So,
I don't like getting bit by anything.
which is fair, and
Yeah.
most people don't. So imagine in general, like not the corn snake tooth, and then like Gaboon fang, like
Yeah.
damn.
Sheesh.
Hard pass.
Oh. So that was your first time getting to see a Gaboon in person. That's fucking awesome. And you said you saw like a lepidus and then some tiger rattlesnakes, and man, that's fucking awesome. And that was at a Venom Lab?
It was a venom lab, yeah. There's over 100 snakes there, so I saw at least 6 different rattlesnake species, and then there was copperheads and cottonmouths, and a hybrid of the two.
The cottonhead.
Yeah. The cottonhead.
Yeah, the cottonhead. And I got to see my first Cerberus in person. I saw a couple, but one was really, really striking. I guess their coloration varies a lot.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's like some that are kind of look more like benign and they kind of have like that more lighter color with like a little bit of the dark highlights. And then there's some that are like black wash the whole thing and it's just like it looks like midnight. I love those ones. Those are so cool. It's like black crushed velvet.
Yeah, gorgeous.
That's super cool. So I I assume it varies per species, but like when you're referencing an animal to tattoo, like what's one of the first things that you're looking at or paying attention to while you're kind of getting that idea in your head?
The way they move, because
Mm,
the types are all different. So unless the client has like a request, sometimes people do where you have to alter it in an unnatural way. But I like to figure out the most natural way to capture the movement of the animal, like
Yeah.
the heavier-bodied vipers, or like I don't know the way like a garter snake coils,
mm,
Mm-hmm.
or like the particular way like cobras sit. You know, they're all so
Yeah.
different.
right. That's super cool. Yeah. I would not have thought about that. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
super cool.
Yeah, I am not what we would call artistically inclined. So whenever I see people who are able to do that, I'm like, that is so fucking cool that your brain works that way because mine makes really bad stick insects. Like you were trying to do snakes. I know, but stick insects is what came out.
It's just time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean I can't laugh. All of my snakes are just drawn as a single line that just squiggles. It's so it's,
That's kind of what they are.
Yeah.
I use a bold Sharpie for the Gaboon Viper, but it's still the same concept.
Very sluggish.
Yeah.
So when you're doing the tattoos, do you use like a variety of different angles for your reference photos?
Yeah, I have to. Because often I'll have to either draw the shape on the person's body to fit correctly, or just figure out a shape that I don't have a direct reference for. So I try to capture like the shape of the scales and the physique as best as I can. So I need a bunch of references to understand it without seeing it in person.
Yeah, when I was looking for photos for like some of the tattoos that I've got, trying to find one that I felt like captured what I was looking for was so freaking hard, because it's like when I'm scrolling on social media, I'm like, oh, I like that picture. Oh, I like that snake. Oh, blah, blah, blah. And then when I'm like, okay, this is going to go on my body, I'm like, I cannot find one picture that is doing what I really want out of this right now. And so it's like, trying to figure out all of that stuff is tough. I don't know.
Yeah, there's usually not one.
Yeah.
Just one that will work. But it's good to find at least like the face, at least a very clear reference for the face shape and scales.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I used Janet for a painting because of that, because she's such a beautiful scrub python, and I wanted to paint.
Scrubs are just like so like striking. Like when you look at them, they just like catch, for me, they just like catch your eye. So especially like Barnecks, they just like immediately draw your eye to them with the netting on the scales and the contrast of the pattern and everything. It's like, for me, it's hard to like look away from them almost.
Yeah, they're so beautiful, and they get pretty big too. Seems like.
Yes, they could definitely get very, very big. I've seen some that are almost too big, but I've seen some that are, pushing 16 feet, and like that's a lot of snake, especially because they're thick. Like they're not as thick as a Burmese python, but they're like athletic thick, right? So like they're not like a power lifter, but they're like, somebody who's got the sleeper build where you're like, oh, that person looks how muscular, and then boom, they just show up and freaking like, I did not know that you were that strong. Why are you that strong?
Right. That's so
that's one
true.
of the things I love about them is just like, they just draw your eye, and they're so iconic. And then you did the white lip python too, right?
Yeah, because I was keeping one for a while, and I was obsessed with him.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
Yeah, I think just I would never I don't like owning wild caught. I don't think it's ethical, but that particular snake was gorgeous, and just ended up, I found him on Craigslist, and he was in pretty bad shape, and then I got to rehab him and put him in a bioactive setup and see his skin recover.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just gorgeous, and I love the scales on their head, the iridescence, the gradient on the body.
Yeah.
Really beautiful animals.
Hell
Very
yeah.
skittish.
Hell yeah.
Definitely very skittish for sure. Yeah. When I kept white lips years ago, that was the one thing that always, I'm not typically a nervous person handling a snake, but when they touch something that they're not expecting, and they jump and they twitch, and you're just like, all right, bro, please just stop for 5 seconds and we can figure out what the hell we're trying to do here. But
yeah, that's one of the interesting parts about keeping them. I've kept a bunch of different snakes in the past 13 years or something. Is there all their temperaments are so different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%.
It's really fascinating.
100%. Yeah, and especially like a python, like a white lip, to be, and they're certainly not all this way, but a large portion of them seem to be a little bit more jittery and twitchy than some other species. And you think about they can get to be a decent size. So it's like, all right, bro, what point in time do you get a little more confident in what you're doing and stop jerking your body around every 5 seconds because you touched this one hair on my arm. Like it's gonna be it's gonna be okay. But it definitely is interesting to see like a python of that size acting that kind of way versus something like maybe a carpet python or something else that's maybe of similar size, but overall seems a lot more confident in how it would move and directionality and stuff. So yeah, you're right. It's very interesting to see how stark that contrast can be.
Yeah, or even like handling the green tree pythons. The way they move is so much slower, I guess, or at least mine. Maybe it's just mine.
I honestly find that most of them move pretty slowly, unless they really get freaked out by something. Then all bets are off. But for the most part, green trees are very slow and deliberate moving snakes. I mean, it's like you got to think maybe staying in the tree it's less beneficial for you to be moving quickly.
Yes, exactly.
I feel like that's a thing kind of across the board with a lot of the arboreal boas and pythons. Like they're definitely super methodical about what they're gonna do. It's like, man, that twig is not gonna hold you. Like be aware.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like the scrubs are like kind of in between because some of them are like slow and deliberate and are okay, but I've got a couple that are just like scared of everything, and the second that you like touch them, they just take off, and they don't care where they go, where they land. If they fall off of the side of a house, they don't care. They're like, I got to get the hell out of here. And it's like, I swear, it's not that serious. I mean,
that's funny.
I know that I don't have the best mug, but I'm not that scary. I swear, it's okay. I'm not gonna eat you.
That's funny. And I have two Amazons that are like that. Actually, they don't mind being touched, but when I'm spraying down the enclosures, as soon as they feel water, it's like, nope, game over. Something touched me. Especially if it's like a little on the colder side.
Yeah.
Like I'm opening the cage, like they're aware that something is happening, so they're already on alert. They're poking their heads out, trying to see what's going on, and start spraying. And I never try to spray them directly, so they get kind of the side
Mist.
spatter from the mist, and then like I make it get a little heavier or whatever. But as soon as I've got two, as soon as they feel those first couple drops, they're like, no, why, stop, and literally will dart out of the enclosure. And I'm just like, what gives? Like, use your brain. You do have one. I know you do have one. Why now? Because literally I can go in there, I can poke it, or just go in and pick it right up. They don't care. But water, especially if it's slightly cooler temperature, mind out the window.
Yeah. Bruh.
Yeah, I don't get it. But it's the fun part of keeping reptiles, right? There's always one crazy one.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I think. Yeah, I've got like two Amazons that are like that. But the videos I've seen of like I don't know if you watched that video, Jeremy, but Dan Malari did some like herping videos in I think Thailand and Southeast Asia, and he found a couple scrubs, but they were on a boat and they're looking at the trees that are hanging over the water, and the scrubs are perched in those trees. Like I know at least one or two of the ones that he's found have been there. So like for those ones, it makes sense. If something disturbs you, jump. You're just gonna end up in the water and you can swim away.
Yeah.
Which like a lot of water snakes do, but like you don't think about scrubs as being a water snake like that.
Yeah, right.
But
that's interesting.
A stark difference between keeping them and seeing them in their habitats, understanding like the ecosystems they come from.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
one of the things that I think about, like when it comes to like that sort of thing, is like there's so many people who keep green tree pythons, and there's such for I have not tried to delve into it very deeply, but as far as I can tell, there's not a ton of information directly about green tree pythons in the wild. So like I follow a couple of people from Australia, and like I'm trying to think, Smithy over in Australia,
Oh
and
yeah,
Matt Somerville,
Matt Somerville.
and
Yeah.
yeah, Matt Somerville had posted finding wild green tree pythons, and when they're hunting, the adults are like this far from the ground. They're like 10 inches from the ground, and just like at nighttime, just pointed at the ground. And they would not find any babies at nighttime, but then he'd go out, and it's like the time right after babies had hatched, and during the daytime the babies would be out hunting, same thing, like 5-10 inches off the ground, but only in daytime, and all the adults would be hiding during the daytime. And so like when the babies are little, they're hunting during the day, and then the adults are hunting at night, and they're not hunting at the same exact time. They're probably hunting for different prey. And it looks like the babies are mostly hunting for little lizards and geckos and little creatures, running around on the ground. And then the um the adults were looking mostly for like mice and maybe amphibians and things like that. And so like when I think about like conventional wisdom for a lot of people who keep green tree pythons is like, to get them started, you have to go into a dark room at nighttime with a little headlamp and heat up a pinky really hot and harass them with it and all this stuff. When naturally in the wild, they're actually not hunting at nighttime. They're sleeping during the babies are sleeping during the nighttime, and then they're hunting during the daytime. So we think that we know all of this stuff, when in reality it's actually almost the opposite of what they're naturally doing in their environment.
Yeah, it makes such a difference.
I think
That's
Mine,
about
true.
little stuff like that all the time.
it's I have mine set up in a bioactive paludarium. It's like one of the bigger ones with 3 feet by 3 feet, and it has about 10 inches of water at the bottom, and she swims at night, which
Really?
I was really surprised by.
That's interesting.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to see, and it's so good for her skin, obviously too. So, but
Yeah.
That's super interesting.
That,
Huh.
the only
wow.
book I could find was the complete chondro, or the more complete chondro,
Yep.
Yeah.
Greg Maxwell. Um, yeah, yeah, and I think it would make such a difference to know those things for husbandry. But there's
Yes.
just not a lot of research on most
Absolutely.
species of snakes.
Yeah. Because like the funding's just not there for a lot of this stuff. If it's not, some of the funding goes into venom research and finding ways that they can make medicine or better painkillers or things like that. Something where they can make money off of whatever they're researching. But just understanding these animals in the wild, there's not a whole lot of. It's got to
No.
be some people who are just passionate about them, and then go and do all this research and submit it for their own purposes. A lot of this is done by citizen scientists, I use in air quotes, of people who are just interested in this stuff. And one of the things that Justin Julander was telling me is like, make observations, write them down, document as much as you can, and literally you could submit stuff that can get published in a scientific literature because you're actually documenting it, and you're somebody who cares about it. Because
That's true.
there's so many things that people just don't care about, or they don't care to document, or to put down on record. And when we went herping in Utah, that was like one of the first times that I was like kind of trigger happy with my temp gun. And everywhere we went, I was just like temp gunning everything. Like when we found something, I was like, okay, we found it right here. This is the temperature that the ground is at right there. And one of the mornings that we went out, we were going for desert tortoises, and there's like this one area where it's like they're really common. It's like a sectioned off protected area, and you can go, they have paths that walk through there. And it was really early in the morning, and like cool enough where I was like wearing a sweatshirt, so it had to be like under 70 degrees or so, but it heated up really quickly, right? And so we're going around and I'm, temp gunning the tortoise and temp gunning the ground next to it. And when we were leaving, the area that was in the sun, like if you're near the trail, kind of on the rocks, the temperature of the rocks was hitting like 125 to 135, so like 125 degrees Fahrenheit on the rock itself. And the last couple tortoises that we saw were actually sitting in the shade, just like little bushes. And so I was like, I wonder what temperature is they're actually sitting at right now, because 125 is brutal to be if you're just like sitting out in the open. In the shade, it was something like 72 degrees. So there's like a 50-degree temperature difference between the shaded area where they're hanging out during the daytime and the areas that were just direct sunlight on the rocks. And so you'd see them like scooting across, but the areas where they were hanging out when it was the hottest part of the day was actually in this much, much cooler area. It's crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
to
I
try
think
to
there's
emulate that.
right.
Huh?
And then to try to emulate that in like an artificial setting.
So hard. So
Right.
hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it also makes you think about like every other situation when it comes to captive husbandry. Like we get that care sheet or we read that book and it's like, okay, well, what was it? Was that the person that was like, okay, well, let me put a thermometer out here and just see what the temperature is right now, like the general temperature. Versus like, okay, I mean, I know when a lot of fundamental research was being done, temp guns weren't really around, but to be able to figure that kind of stuff out and be like, yeah, okay, they're exposed to this extreme, but that doesn't mean that's what they want all the time.
Yeah.
So, and also makes you think too, like especially if you're somebody who keeps things in larger enclosures. Like I remember growing up, like it was always the struggle was to try to make sure your ambient temperatures were maintained and fairly constant across the enclosure. Obviously, you want to have a cool side and a warm side, but you would try to keep those ambient temps at a certain point because you're like, if it drops too low, it's going to be too cold. And it's like, well, okay. I mean, in theory, yes, I get it. I get the premise. However, when you go outside, like it's actually a little cooler over here. So that's interesting. Like I think about that, like even with the Amazons, like as I try to think about bigger enclosures for Amazons and stuff like that, like ensuring they have that decent temperature gradient. And sometimes that means like if you have some sort of aerial heat source like a heat panel or a heat lamp or something like that on a taller enclosure, how are you going to make sure like, okay, well, if that temperature is maybe in the low 80s, which is what they kind of like, we know they can get into the 70s and still be comfortable, but they don't want to get super cold. So how do you mitigate that? Oh, well, I can throw an under tank heater or a piece of heat tape on the bottom and just have it at a lower setting, so we start thinking about doing a little bit more to the enclosures to kind of mediate those issues. But back when most of us started keeping, it was like, no, heat lamp, there you go. Like that's it, keep it hot.
They're like, what wattage bulb? They're like, lamp.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, I put my hand over it and it's hot. I think we're good.
It's hot.
Oh man, but yeah, it's interesting to see as we start figuring more of that kind of stuff out, like what we can take and bring into the captive husbandry space for so many of these animals, and especially as people are putting more time and effort into enclosures and designs and stuff like that. Like how can we make sure that we have dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's, and provided that as close to naturalistic replication as possible.
Yeah, it's really challenging. I love bioactive setups so far. I mean, the space I have them in. I was hoping to try to build something. I'll build my own like ceramic setup for a bioactive. But it's pretty challenging just to get everything you need and make sure it works for the snake, and that you don't get mites from, I don't know, plants or however it happens. And then, yeah, certain, like, the heavier bodied snakes will, like, crush the plants, but it seems to, I don't know, I feel like they thrive in it, but I don't know if it's very popular. Do you guys do any bioactive setups? Have you ever tried it?
I did like years and years ago when I did dart frogs. Like the amphibian space was like, I joke now because like bioactive enclosures are like the buzz thing for reptiles, but amphibian people have been doing that for probably decades now. So like that was where I had like my first experience with it, and I enjoyed it. I definitely agree though, like trying to move into larger animals and make that accommodating for them poses a lot more challenges. And can be a lot more frustrating to try to accomplish, especially like Rob and I have talked about it with like blood pythons and short-tailed pythons, like an animal that might do well in theory will destroy an entire colony of isopods and everything with like one time peeing with just that insanely acidic urine. So like trying to make that work, like that's way more challenging than like some of the like micro geckos or some smaller snake species, or even like the tree boas and tree pythons and stuff. Like they would do well in setups like that. But yeah, I definitely think it's important to really look at everything, because sometimes, like I said, for certain species it doesn't always make the most sense, and you'll just find yourself having to like rebuild and redo time and time and time and time again because of just how the animal naturally is in a captive enclosure.
Yeah, for me, like I mostly kept bloods and short tails, and they will just crush all the plants. They'll dig them up, and they pee a lot, and their pee is really acidic, so it like kills everything, like all the isopods and the plants and everything. It just kills it. And so to be able to do them in a bioactive enclosure, you'd have to do like quadruple the amount of space that you would think you would need, because of like they don't go to the bathroom all that often. You'd have to supplement, so it'd end up being a lot more work than what I would want to put into it. So I haven't done it because that's like mostly what I've kept. And then the scrubs, I'm like, I'll put fake plants in there and some like tree limbs and stuff. But again, I'm like, I really don't want them to crush the plants. It's easier for me because of the number of snakes that I have and everything. I'm like, it's just easier for me to not do those sort of things. I'd consider it. Like, I want to get into venomous, and I would love to do like a rhino viper in a, an enclosure like that. I think that it might go okay. I don't know, honestly, though, because they're kind of like a little blood python too, where they're like, hold their poop and then they pee all the time. So I don't know if they would work, but I would love to have one in a bioactive enclosure. I bet you it would look badass. But like, something like copperheads, I like Transpagos copperheads. I would like to do those in something like more natural like that. But as far as the stuff that I keep now, I don't have anything that's on bioactive. I got some stuff that's on like, mulch and with like fake plants and stuff. But for most of the stuff that I've got right now, it wouldn't make sense for me to do it for the stuff that I've got. So.
Right, because it's also keeping everything clean.
Yeah. It's like, I still have a lot of bloods and short tails. So like a lot of that stuff, it's just easier for me to do paper or paper towels on them. And then the scrubs, I've got some on mulch and some on paper and some, a variety of different things. I have a few geckos too. I could probably do their enclosures in bioactive and it will probably work out pretty good. But I don't know. I find that like I have a system of how I run through things, and it probably take me time to adjust to it.
Yeah, keeping them seems very tricky. You definitely have to develop a system to keep all your animals healthy.
Yeah.
Is that
absolutely?
Like, sticking to certain species is easier too, because you get to know exactly what they need.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, 100%. I definitely think like I know like this is my Chihuahua cage behind me here. Like I know when I redo it, we almost went the bioactive route. We just didn't put the isopods and stuff in there because I was tinkering around with a water feature and wanted to make sure that I had it working before we went to that point. And there's no longer a water feature in there. But but I know like at some point I'm going to end up redoing it just as things have kind of grown and shifted. I'll probably take that in the bioactive space because that's one of the Zoom Ed skyscrapers. So it's like 18 by 18 by 36. It's got all this room for all that stuff, and like I think that would be really fun to do. So yeah, and I do when I was building this, I was reminiscing on doing those dart frog enclosures when I was a kid, and I was like, man, this is really fun. Like I do enjoy kind of like creating that ecosystem space. But yeah, then I think about like, yeah, you know, it is also a little easier to clean when I can just go in and wipe it down and we're good to go.
I see that. I understand that.
Yeah.
I want to try to set one up for the yellow-tailed Crebo. I want to make a bigger. He's in a 5x2x2 right now, but I want to make a big enclosure and see if I can get something bioactive for him and see what.
That would be super cool.
That'd be cool.
Big. I think he's around 6 feet or something.
Oh heck
That's
yeah.
awesome.
That'd be cool, especially if you had an enclosure that was even a bit taller, where you could get some bigger plants in there that aren't going to get dug up or anything as he kind of like roots around through stuff. So
Yeah.
that'd be super cool.
Yeah. Let's see. Another project.
That'd be sweet.
Hell yeah. So Rob, that's what you got to do if you're going to put a blood python in a bioactive. You just got to have a 12-foot tall cage so you can put a tree in there.
I'm not putting it past them that they would still dig it up.
Exactly.
Have you seen those videos out of Southeast Asia, like where they're finding them and they're like pulling them out of root systems of trees and stuff? I'm
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
What are you doing in there?
Yep. It's like cats in boxes. They just want to go and sit inside of it. Exactly. It fits, I sit. That's it.
That's great.
Oh man. That is hilarious.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, that is super exciting. I'm looking forward to if you're able to do that. You should post clips along the journey. I'd be curious to see how that goes.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, I will try. When I get some of the next trips.
Right.
Yeah.
Hell
That's
yeah.
awesome.
I dig it.
Well,
hell yeah.
We're just over an hour, so that is typically about the time that we record for. I wanted to say thank you for coming on, but we do have one question that we wrap up every episode with that we ask the guests that we have on. And that question is, what in the realm of reptiles, be it something that you're doing or about to go do or something that you've seen online, what has you excited about reptiles right now?
This upcoming trip to go see these herpetologists doing this study on, snake evolution and see these.
Hell yeah.
Amazon. Yeah.
Yes. I hope that you post some pictures and videos from there because I'm very envious. I think that's going to be a really cool trip.
Yeah, very excited.
Hell
yeah.
I dig it.
And then if people want to follow you online, where should they find you?
My Instagram is s.mancino tattoo. And that's it.
There we go.
Yeah, that's all.
Bam.
Hell yeah. Well,
Heck
thank you
yeah.
so much for coming on tonight. We really
Yes, thank
appreciate it.
you.
We had a good time, and we'll hopefully we can have you back after your trip so we can talk about how that went and all the cool bushmasters and anacondas you got to see.
Thank you.
Heck yeah. Sweet. All right.
All right. Well, we'll catch up with everybody next time. Thank you for tuning in.